अवगतामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We are on chapter 26, Festival at Adhar's house. The date is Sunday, August 3rd, 1884. We started this chapter last week, and it actually takes place in Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar, and the festival at Adhar's house doesn't take place till the next month, actually. So the title is a little deceiving. Yeah. But we're on page 502. And Sri Ramakrishna was talking to a party of Baus from Shibpur. And then Rakal, Latu, and Harish, they're there. And of course, M is there. And there was a lot of talk about yoga and Kundalini. And now we're up to Sri Ramakrishna speaking. Master, and this is mostly, addressing the Shibpur devotees, the Bahuls. As your attachment to the world diminishes, your spiritual knowledge will increase. Attachment to the world means attachment to lust and greed. Yeah, this we read this first line last time. This is extremely important because we tend to have this idea that knowledge is something intellectual, and that the reason why we don't understand these high spiritual truths is that we haven't figured it out. That somehow we're not using our intellect, and our power of reasoning isn't sharp enough, something like that. When the real problem is the heart is not pure. The real problem is we have our attachments to the world. So Sri Ramakrishna here is very, very clear. He says, this, as your attachment to the world diminishes, your spiritual knowledge will increase. So this is that connection, really, we can say, between head and heart, that we tend to think that the head will be enough if we have some deeper understanding. We have some deeper insight into the truths of Advaita Vedanta and real nature of the self and all of these things. But the real problem is attachment, which means identification with the lower self, body and mind and everything, which gets back to this lust and greed and all of the passions. These are the things that keep us attached. And this is why the preliminary prerequisites for study of Vedanta all have to do with purification of the heart, all have to do with getting a little bit of vairagya, that we have to have some detachment, some discrimination, some love and faith, all of these things. These are the real impediments. Not that if we have all of these, we'll be intellectual giants, because the spiritual truth that Sri Ramakrishna is talking about is experience, is realization, knowing the real nature of the self. It's not understanding these intricate Vedantic philosophies and things like that. Now he's going to switch a little bit here to this idea of love. It is not given to everybody to feel Prema, ecstatic love of God. Chaitanya experienced it. Now, I'll finish this. An ordinary man can at the most experience Bhava. Only the Ishwarakotis, such as divine incarnations, experience Prema. When Prema is awakened, the devotee not only feels the world to be unreal, but forgets even the body, which everyone loves so intensely. Okay, now, these are all technical terms which are found in the mostly the Vaishnava scriptures. Some of this Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they wrote about all of these things, and they are all accompanied by different types of emotions and even physical changes in the body and things like that. We don't have to bother too much about all of these things. When Sri Ramakrishna says the very highest forms of devotion are not available to everyone, he's talking about that really divine madness that he went through, where the longing for God is so great, fire is like burning, the body is like on fire, and tears are coming. They even talk about blood oozing out of the pores. This we don't expect that to happen to us, and it doesn't have to. So we shouldn't think that we're being deprived of something. These are unusual things. These very very special types of experiences that according to this particular tradition, these are things in the life of Radha, and we're seen in the life of Chaitanya Deva, and we see, according to the Brahmani, very same things we see in the life of of Sri Ramakrishna. So, when the Brahmani tried to convince all of the Pandits that Sri Ramakrishna was an avatar, she did it mostly by showing all of the signs of this Bhava, Prema, Mahabhava, all of that, and divine, what looks like divine madness, that we're seen in the body and in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, and compared it to the scriptures that talk about Radha and Chaitanya Deva. Now we get here this term Ishwarakoti. This we come across many, many times in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Jiva Koti and Ishwara Koti. These are this is the distinction, the two categories, very broad categories that Sri Ramakrishna talks about. The Ishwara Koti will be that special soul who comes along with the avatar and can include the avatar who comes along in each incarnation. So it's not simply a perfect soul. It's even more than Nitya Siddha, these perfect souls. These are the ones who are tightly within the orbit of the avatar. So just like the Earth and the Moon that goes around it, wherever the Earth goes around, the Moon will be there. So this is, I don't know what, if this is a Sankhya distinction or, do you know, Maharaj? This is what it's not very clear, but Thakur uses this expression. I have a feeling it's from, well, I shouldn't even say. So we don't know exactly, but for Sri Ramakrishna, this is something that uh, he had a strong conviction about. And he designated 6 of his disciples as Ishwarakotis, but in general, he would refer to uh, all of his disciples, not by name, but sometimes you look around, these boys, he would say something like that, as Nitya Siddha. That means born perfect, that not born because of some karma, not born because of attachments and desires, that in their previous lifetime they were already perfect and could have chosen or could have just attained that final liberation, but either the will of God, the will of the avatar, their own desire to help others, some reason that they were able to take birth again. So different traditions have ideas like this. The closest that we have probably is Bodhisattva in the Buddhist tradition, that they'll take a vow that they'll be born again and again until everyone is liberated. And Swamiji took that vow, or that was his utterance. May I be born again and again. Yeah. So, and it's interesting that 5 of them, Ishvara Kotis, were the monastic disciples. And then Purna, at the end, will be the 6th, who should have been a monastic disciple, probably. It's very hard to say this, but his parents really pressed him, forced him to get married when he was young. I'll talk about this a little more if we get to it this day, because Bhavanath will also be there. We'll talk about him a little. And Thakur always gives this example that one becomes forgetful of the world seems unreal, like a dream. My whole mind is thinking about this divine play, and one becomes forgetful of the body. Very often he'll say, "Ato priyojanish," so such a precious thing to people, how they pamper the body and feed it and do everything. This is one of the signs of this higher type of realization, that they become forgetful of the body. And this happened, of course, in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, that completely forgot about food and sleep and caring for the body. Anything, his hair became long and tangled and all sorts of things. In a Persian book, it is said that inside the skin is the flesh, inside the flesh, the bone, inside the bone, the marrow, and so on. But that Prema is the innermost of all. One becomes soft and tender through Prema, highest type of divine love. On account of this Prema, Krishna became Tribhanga. There's a footnote, literally bent in 3 places. And this is the usual standing figure of Krishna. Krishna is Govinda when he's a boy playing his flute. The neck, the waist, and the knees. A very standard picture that we have. Prema is the rope by which you can tether God, as it were. Whenever you want to see him, you have merely to pull the rope. Whenever you call him, he will appear before you. So this is all based on the idea that one can establish a relationship with God that is so real and that is so tangible and is so appealing that everything else falls away. So there's no need whatsoever to develop this passion to the world or anything. The mind is just pulled so deeply into the communion with the divine in whatever form that one worships God. So this is, and we find that the very heights of the path of devotion mirror heights of the path of knowledge also. The world seems unreal, that one forgets one's body, all of these things, because these are higher stages. We're getting closer and closer to the apex, to the roof. So Prema is the rope by which you can tether God, as it were. Whenever you want to see him, you have merely to pull the rope. Whenever you call him, he will appear before you. Now, he's going to go through this whole list of different stages of devotion. The mature stage of Bhakti is Bhava. So Bhakti, we can say, is just a feeling of extreme love for the divine. The same type of love that we understand as worldly love gets transferred. So it can be in any of the relationships, worshiping God as a child, as a friend, as a lover, as mother, any of the relationships. And it becomes so real that we have that same type of pull, the same pull that the mother has for the child, with this type of bhakti that the devotee will have for baby Krishna, or any of the relationships. So this is bhakti. Now, when it matures into bhava, Bhava, as we understand it, is not just an emotion, it's some type of experience, some type of mind going into a higher state. Bhakti, we can have bhakti uh, in an ordinary state of awareness. Sri Ramakrishna always said it didn't depend on the mind going into an ecstatic mood or anything like that. That just that intense love of mother for Sri Ramakrishna, of the Divine Mother. So that bhakti is always there. But when it ripens into bhava, then some type of ecstatic feeling or vision will come. I don't know if it has to be this bhava samadhi we talk about, but some real change. Each one of these will trigger, just like different states of meditation. To go into savikalpa and the nirvikalpa, each one will trigger something a little bit higher. So we start with bhakti and then bhava. When one attains it, one remains speechless, thinking of Satchidananda. So uh, we can only imagine that how the depth of love for God will bring about these changes in the body and mind. The feeling of an ordinary man can go only that far. Now, uh, if it says we can only go that far, does that mean that there are other steps on the stairs that we can't reach, which means we can't reach the roof? This would be one logical way of understanding it. I don't think it means that at all. I think he's just saying that on the journey to the roof, and these Ishwarakotis, they don't have to worry about roof or no roof. We're trying to get to the roof. That if we can get uh, real devotion, real bhakti, that's enough. We don't have to have visions and ecstatic states and get into some type of uh, deep meditation where we're like an inert thing. That this doesn't have to necessarily take place. There'll be many people who attain the highest type of realization without all of these things, and they can be bhaktas also. So because we'll get this list. This will keep going higher and higher and higher, and then finally realization. So uh, just as I don't think that we all have to have 6 months of nirvikalpa samadhi for realization, as Ramakrishna did. That we see the ocean, we sprinkle a couple of drops. That's enough. We don't have to do anything more. So this is the feeling of an ordinary man can go only that far. When bhava ripens, it becomes Mahabhava. Now, the difference between all of these, I don't know if these are actual universally accepted things, but in these texts that were written by these Goswamis, they'll talk about different markers, these different moods that come along, different experiences and everything. We can just understand it that it's becoming more and more intense. Prema is the last. You know the difference between a green mango and a ripe one. Unalloyed love of God is the essential thing. All else is unreal. So it's not saying that Brahman alone is real, all else is unreal, which is also, uh, of course, truth of Vedanta. But this unalloyed love of God, he says, is the essential thing. All else is unreal. That means all else is very much secondary in the scheme of life. If we're talking about what do we want to attain in this lifetime, what's valuable in this lifetime, that everything else has a role to play in getting through this life, but it's not the ultimate goal of life.
In this hierarchy, Prema is above Mahabhava.
Here he says that Prema is above Mahabhava. Yeah. I don't know enough about all of these things. That there's one Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, very famous, big, long, technical text. We think some of the Chaitanya school, that they're all ecstatic, just singing the name of God. They were very highly scholastic and wrote very detailed books on devotion with all the categories and all bhavas and rasas and all sorts of things that Great master, there's a little bit reference to that. How many different, 21 different types of mental, physical modification, all things like that. So these terms mean nothing to us. If we say no, it's not, it's Mahabhava is above Prema, it means nothing to us. It's just terminology. We're just talking about. I mean, if we think about human love, we have that example, very good example of Vilva Mangal. This is I don't know who originally wrote it, but it became very quite famous in Bengal because Girish wrote a play about that. That this man was so enamored with a prostitute, so much so that he longed to see her so much that he became completely unaware of what he was doing, and she lived on the other side of the river, and it was a stormy night. There was no boatman that would take him, so he swam across. And on the way, uh, he had to grab hold of something. He thought it was a log, and then got on the shore and climbed on the back of something. And then he had to climb a wall, so he grabbed hold of a rope and climbed over that way, and he got to her. And then she said, "So you smell a little funny. Why?" And they go back and they find out it was really a corpse. So he's holding onto a corpse. So his mind is so immersed in the thought of his beloved that he doesn't even know this rotting corpse. And then stepping on the back of a crocodile to get on shore, not even aware that his life could be gone in a second. And then that rope that was hanging from the wall was a snake. It was in the kind of in a hole there, holding on to that. So this Chintamani, that was her name, she said, so attached to me and enamored with me that you failed to see holding on to a rotten corpse and walking on the back of a crocodile and holding on to the tail of a snake. If you had that type of love for God, you could realize God. And that triggered it. And he realized that she was right, and he left and became a saint. We don't know if it's Tulsi Das or Surdas or something, but anyhow, this is that story. So we can only compare this to human love, and it's completely different. But this is why all of the relationships are human relationships. This is what we know. And one way of doing this is transference, is try to really feel that intensity that the mother has for the newborn child, and to try to feel, look upon God as our own newborn child, and try to feel that same love, or this Vilamangal and Chintamani, Radha and Krishna. Well, this is, but for those who have this realization, it's similar but different. It's based on these human relations, but transcends them to such a degree that we completely forget the world. Anyhow, this is the way all of this is explained. If we can get just a drop of real devotion, it's enough. This is a single drop. That's a very precious thing. Sri Ramakrishna liked to quote that song that Sri Krishna says, "It doesn't bother me to give mukti, but I'm a little miserly when it comes to giving this divine love." Once, Rama was pleased with the prayer of Narada and told him to ask for a boon. Now remember, these Shibhur devotees, they're vowels, they'll come from this type of tradition, both with the Kundalini, which is more of a tantric thing, and this Vaishnava tradition from the Chaitanya school. There's a Baal tradition grew out of all of that. Once Rama was pleased with the prayer of Narada and told him to ask for a boon. Narada prayed for pure love and said further, "O Rama, please grant that I may not be deluded by thy world-bewitching Maya." Rama said, "That is all right, but ask for something else." Narada replied, "I don't want anything else. I pray only for pure love." Narada is considered to be of course, we attribute the Bhakti Sutra to Narada, to be someone who had that highest type of love. How can a devotee attain such love? Okay, so suppose this appeals to us. We're not very philosophical. We don't like this idea. I'm one with God. We say, you say this world is unreal. It looks very real to me. But I like this idea of love of God. How do I get it? Now, what is the first thing that Sri Ramakrishna says? This will be the same answer he gives for almost any question. That if someone says, what is the way? How to realize God? Very same thing he'll say, company of holy men. Holy men means a holy people, holy women also. This is satsanga or sadhu sangha. If it can be, of course, a God realized soul, then it's better. But if it can be anyone who's very sincerely practicing a spiritual life, even fellow devotees, this is also very helpful. But if we see, this is the whole thing. If we read about these things, it doesn't leave much of an impression. I can't even imagine what it's like. If we see someone who has that and see how they just completely forget everything else, they don't care about anything else, and then we get some real conviction. Now, we're very fortunate because we're seeing all of this ourselves directly through the eyes of him. It's not the same as being present there, but it's almost it's the next best thing that we can really develop a conviction about all of this because, first of all, M is describing everything, and second of all, Sri Ramakrishna, he is not the least bit hesitant to explain the different moods and different realizations that he has and his spiritual experiences, and what happens when the mind goes higher and higher, what happens when he gets in these devotional moods. And we have very good accounts that were kept, mostly by Fridoy. He did a great service because he was there when Sri Ramakrishna went through all of this divine madness and everything. So we're going to get a list now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things. First, number 1, company of holy men. That awakens shraddha, faith in God. Now, shraddha, this is one of those terms and one of those concepts, you can say, that everybody will explain a little bit differently according to their own understanding, because it includes so many things, and different people will put emphasis on one thing more than another thing. When I think of shraddha, I think of reverential attitude that we take, and it has to be accompanied by extreme humility. Now, we ordinarily will say faith in God, faith in the scripture, something like that. But it's really, it's qualities that a devotee has who's ready to start spiritual life. Shraddha we have to have in the beginning. If we talk about faith, we have two terms, vishwasa and shraddha. And they're used almost interchangeably, but they're really quite different because in the beginning, we won't have conviction about many things that will come at the end in spiritual life. So if you say you really believe that God can be realized, I haven't had that realization. If I have that realization, then I'll say 100% yes, I know for a fact. But I'll say no. But I have faith that that this is something possible, and I have an understanding that my intelligence is very limited, my experience is very limited, that I have to rely on these great souls, that if I don't understand something, that it's the shortcomings of my understanding. So a lot of this humility, I think, is a big part of shraddha, that we recognize that we're children and babies in spiritual life, and that there are others that we rely upon. And as we grow in spiritual life, all of this, then gradually deeper and deeper conviction grows. And then at the end, Sri Ramakrishna says, when we develop this real vishwasa, then this is also one of the final stages. He'll say sometimes vyakulata, that sometimes it's anuraga, sometimes sharanagati, but also there's a vishwasa. That this, so we're so convinced of the truth of these things that we can practically taste it, almost there. I like to quote Swami Swanandaji because he used to say this quite often, that conviction itself is a type of realization. And sometimes when he would be pressed, have you had any type of realization? He would get a little laugh and a little smile. He'd say, I have some conviction. So, so that comes from some type of direct experience. Shraddha is based just at the very beginning, when we can say that I really know nothing about God. I know nothing about this path to realization, but I have tremendous faith that there's something there, that these gurus can take us by the hand and lead us step by step, and I'm willing to have that type of faith. Now, it's not blind faith, because Swamiji had tremendous shraddha for Sri Ramakrishna. His shraddha was of the type that he had to understand it. So people are different. Latu Maharaj, whatever Thakur said, immediately he accepted it. Swamiji had to argue about everything, but once he saw the truth of it, and once he saw that everything that Sri Ramakrishna said was right and turned out to match everything, then he stopped questioning so much. But for him, his shraddha took that form of questioning everything. He had really, what type of faith do we have? If somebody tells us something, we simply say, okay, you said it, I'll accept it. And then we say, do you understand it? No. Do you believe it? No, but you said it, it's enough. I'll accept it. That's also not shraddha. So this very hard to give a good translation, faith in God. But it's really so much more than that. If we see these great souls who have some type of realization, have some real devotion, and we develop shraddha for them, tremendous respect and tremendous confidence and trust and reliance on them to be able to teach us how we can attain something. So this is shraddha. Then comes nishtha. So the shraddha, we may not even know what form of God to worship. We may not have any particular spiritual path, but with the help of the guru, when we find that aspect or relationship with God that appeals to us, then we stick to that, become very firm in that. So this nishtha generally will have to do with our ishta devata. What form of God do we want to worship? It can be Rama, Krishna, Shiva, Durga, anything like that, or any of the incarnations. For most of us here, our shraddha is directed to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. And it's a type of fanaticism based on the idea that everyone equally can worship God in their own way, with a similar type of fanaticism. So it's actually the opposite of fanaticism, but it has that same depth of attachment to our spiritual ideal. So I don't have to say that everyone has to worship the way I do. I'd like to think of God as mother. You like to think of God as father. I'm unwavering that, yes, God can equally be thought of as father, but for me, it's much more appealing. It's a much sweeter relationship. Everything that I do is based on that idea, all of my prayer, my worship, and everything, that I'm not going to move from that I'll remain firm in this particular spiritual attitude and spiritual path. This is nishtha. So it comes from first this holy company. We develop some conviction, a little bit of feeling that this is the one thing we want in life. And then from that, we get the shraddha. And through shraddha, then we get nishtha. So we'll get these things one after another. So then comes nishtha, single-minded devotion to the ideal. In that stage, the devotee does not like to hear anything but talk about God. He performs only those acts that please God. After nishtha comes bhakti, devotion to God. Now, we may say in the beginning, we're practicing bhakti yoga. Everybody has devotion. But again, these are slightly technical terms. That this bhakti will also have to be something very real and very tangible and very concrete, if we want to really call it bhakti. So this is also an attainment. We're following bhakti yoga from the beginning. We have devotion for God from the very beginning, but it'll ripen to the point where we can really say, yes, I have a little bhakti. So this is that next stage. So we start with uh, holy company, then shraddha, then nishtha, and then bhakti, devotion to God. Then it comes bhava. So these things ripen and thicken and get stronger. Uh, whether we can really understand the difference between these, I don't know. I don't know. Just as with meditation, as we go deeper and deeper and deeper, is there one point where we can say, yes, now I switched from this meditation to this. Now it's this type of samadhi and this. I don't think it works that way. I think it's some gradual, like the ripening of the mango. I think is a good illustration that Thakur gives. It's not like one day it's unripe, the next day it's ripe. It's a gradual process. So I think a gradual process uh, from this bhakti to bhava, then Mahabhava, then Prema. Then last of all, the attainment of God himself. So this is the point that I think this is the way it works for these Ishvara kotis and special souls. For us, we can go directly from bhava to some type of realization. Otherwise, we're debarred from it. And Thakur never says that. It's just that these very high types of experiences of devotion. But then he says, only for Ishvara kotis, such as the incarnations, is it possible to have Mahabhava or Prema. This is that idea that we don't need to know how many bottles of wine there are in the wine cellar when one bottle will get us intoxicated. Now, there may be other people that they can drink a whole carton of bottles and they can get drunk, whereas we'll just pass out. And they can sing and dance and do all of that. We can't do all of that. But Thakur says we don't need to. One bottle is enough for us. So we don't have to worry about that, oh, I'll never have this Mahabhava and everything. There's kind of a silly idea to think that we could. These are very, very, just as Nirvikalpa Samadhi is a very rare thing, these are also equally rare things. The knowledge of a worldly person, the knowledge of a devotee, and the knowledge of an incarnation are by no means of the same degree. Now, Sri Ramakrishna very often will say that the knowledge is the same, but the difference is Shakti, power. So when he says degree, we can take it that way, that the degree, say, with all of these things, Vairagya, Viveka, all of these things, the degree of dispassion that great souls will have will be on a different level. Our dispassion will mean that, yeah, I'm not so tempted by things. I don't care for these things anymore. For them, it's like a raging forest fire. It'll can't bear the touch of worldly things and everything. So this is the same principle, but a different degree. So the knowledge of a worldly person, the knowledge of a devotee, and the knowledge of an incarnation are by no means of the same degree. The knowledge of a worldly person is like the light of an oil lamp. Now, worldly person, I don't think means really a worldly person. I think samsari. I think it means someone who's still living in the world, someone who has family and everything. I don't think because somebody who's really leading a worldly life that we would say a very unspiritual life. It won't have knowledge. It won't have any of these things. So the knowledge of a so-called worldly person is like the light of an oil lamp, which shows only the inside of a room. Through such knowledge, he eats and drinks, attends to household duties, protects his body, brings up his children, and so on. The knowledge of a devotee is like the light of the moon, which illumines objects both inside and outside a room. But such light does not enable him to see a distant or a very minute object. The knowledge of an incarnation of God is like the light of the sun. Through that light, the incarnation sees everything, inside and outside, big and small. Now, here Sri Ramakrishna is talking from his own direct experience, how he could look at a person and know what's in the mind and heart of that person, what their past was, what their future is. There's so many examples that we have that we have no way of explaining it other than this is some special type of insight and depth of understanding that they have that ordinary people don't have. The mind of a worldly person is no doubt like muddy water, but it can be made clear by a purifying agent. Discrimination and renunciation are the purifying agent. Yeah, there's a little kind of a nut, huh? Nirmali, they call it. You can put in water and it'll purify it, and you can drink it. That they use. The master spoke to the devotees from Shibpur. He's talking to all of them. Now directly he'll talk to them. Master, have you any questions to ask? A devotee, we have listened to your words. Master, yes, it is good to listen to these things. Now, Sri Ramakrishna obviously feels that these are very sincere people. The Bhavas were very sincere people. We may question the type of practices that they had, but in general, they gave up everything, good standing in the world, in their communities and everything. They were really kind of thought to be not fit to live in cultured society and everything. So they had some stuff to them, usually. Anyhow, he seems to think highly of these devotees. So, Master, yes, it is good to listen to these things, but nothing will happen except at the right time. What can quinine do for a fever patient when he runs a high temperature? Only when his temperature comes down through the use of fever mixture or purgative should quinine be prescribed. There are patients who get rid of their fever even without quinine. A child said to his mother when he was put to bed, "Mother, please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." The mother said, "My child, I shall not have to wake you. The urge itself will wake you." Now, there's a danger in all this. And that danger is that we feel that then I don't have to do anything. Self-effort is not necessary. If anything goes wrong, we say, the time wasn't right. That it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't Thakur's will. We hear all of these things. But this is what we say after we've tried everything. Then we can say, yeah, perhaps the time wasn't right, that I still have to keep struggling and everything. These things will come in time. But they won't come in time unless we do something. Because whatever it is that triggers it, whatever deeper understanding, purity of heart, whatever it is that's necessary for all of that, we have to work to acquire. We have to struggle for all of these things. So I think sometimes it's a little escapist, sometimes it's a little bit just tamasic to say, the time isn't right, wasn't meant to be. That say a lot of people have this idea that when the disciple is ready, the guru will come. It's a very common idea. That, okay, it's good if we have that type of faith, but for many people, a whole lifetime goes in waiting and not doing anything. And then we find out that, yeah, you approach somebody And they'll tell you if the time's not right. At least give yourself the opportunity for it. They may say yes, come back in 6 years. They may say anything, but uh, we have to put forth some type of effort, and then afterwards we accept the results. That it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't mother's will. However, we understand it, but uh, we have to keep struggling with all of this. There's some monastic traditions. We read about this in a lot of Buddhist traditions, Chinese and Japanese, where someone will go. They say they want to become a monk, and they'll slam the door in their face, and then they'll come back, and the same thing will happen. And then they'll sit outside the door every day for 6 months or a year, something like that. Then the door will open, and they'll say, "Okay, you can come in." They're testing them. Now, in the very beginning, they could have said, "Oh, okay, they know better than I do. Let me go back and live in the world." This is why they're testing them and everything. So, some of this is not accepting what seems to be this idea that, well, the time isn't right. It's not auspicious. That I have too many attachments to the world and everything. How do we get rid of attachment? We have to do something. So, but this is meant for us to understand that no matter how much we try to achieve something in spiritual life, that we have to be ready. The field has to be prepared, but we have to try. We have to struggle. That's how we prepare the field. But if it's not ready, then it'll take longer. And this other idea, Thakur uses this illustration also with this anuraga and Vaidhi Bhakti. That how do we know when the time has come, when we don't have to keep doing our japa and everything, that we can just say, divine love and everything. He said, we don't decide about that. That we'll know when that time comes. It'll happen automatically. And just like we don't have to ask mother to wake us up to go to the bathroom at night. It's a very interesting illustration that he gives. The urge itself will wake you. That longing for God will become so strong that we're incapable of following ordinary rules and rituals and things. Then Sri Ramakrishna continues with these to the devotees. Different kinds of people come here. Some come by boat with their devotees, with the devotees. So these will be just very often people would be friends. That there's so much love and respect for Sri Ramakrishna. They assume that anybody who comes within his orbit will just be converted. That automatically they'll also see what a sweet, loving, divine personality he is. But it doesn't work that way. Many of them just got bored. So some come by boat with the devotees, but they do not enjoy spiritual talk. They keep nudging their friends and whispering, "When shall we leave here? When are we going?" If the friend shows no sign of getting up, they say, "We would rather wait for you in the boat." Those who have a human body for the first time need the experience of sense enjoyments. Spiritual consciousness is not awakened unless certain duties have been performed. Okay, now this is another idea. See, the problem is that we have no idea. We have no idea where we are on this continuum from if we say first human birth to the final birth. We have no idea. We assume that because we've had enough grace that we've come to within the orbit of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, that is not a first lifetime. We have to assume that. The Holy Mother will say that is your last birth, my child. But anyhow, we really don't know. And we don't know what type of karma we're born with. We don't know what types of experiences we have to have. We don't know what type of enjoyments we have to go through, what type of disappointments that we'll face in life. We don't know these things. And we should try to, of course, lessen our desires and attachments and everything. But Sri Ramakrishna makes it very clear that some of these things have to be experienced. And if we look back on our lives and wonder, why did I have to go through all of that? Why did I have such attachment when I was young? Why did I have so many bad experiences? Then we can see that these were all things that we had to go through and along this path for one reason or another. So I mentioned many times this term bhoganta, that we have to reach the end of our enjoyment. And the problem is that do we have a finite number and we want to get rid of it quickly, or are we just increasing it, making more and more and more? We have to be very careful about that. We can also keep increasing it, but there's some desires that we fulfill and then they're gone. There's some that we just snuff out as best we can. So this is a very interesting statement that those who have a human body for the first time need the experience of sense enjoyments. We can't ask, and so Swamiji says that, don't ask somebody who's starving for a loaf of bread to start becoming a religious person. They have to at least be able to experience that. He says, even luxury, he says that, yeah, for the poor, even luxury. Let them at least have the experience of that once, and then see that there's nothing to it, that these things are necessary. Otherwise, people who have never experienced things will always wonder what type of joy is there in that, unless they've done it, of course, in past lifetime. But spiritual consciousness is not awakened unless certain duties have been performed. Now, this word duty probably is karma. That so not just duties, but desires have been fulfilled. We have to reach the end of desire, and some we do it by fulfilling it, some we do by eliminating it, some we do by replacing. There are all different ways of dealing with all of these things. So we will resemble those who in their first human birth, in some respects, with some terrible longing for different types of desires, and will resemble those in the last lifetime to a certain extent, with some great longing for realization. I don't think it's so clear that in some respects we'll be like beginners, other respects we'll have made some real progress in spiritual life. But this is the whole point of the 4 stages of life, and why it was always felt by many of the great these writers of Dharma Shastra and everything, that the householder stage of life was necessary before sannyasa. That the desire for wealth, for enjoyment, for children, all of that, it had to be gone through, and then that desire will be gone, fulfilled and gone. Then one is ready to renounce the world. Then the other doctrine, of course, is that those who have done this before or don't have that desire, they'll go straight to sannyasa. The master was going to the pine grove. With a smile, he said to M on the semicircular porch, "Well, what do you think of my state of mind?" Now, why Thakur asked this question so often at so many different people, he had his own reasons. First of all, with M, it's different from everybody else because M is recording things. With others, it was to gauge their sensitivity to spirituality, how sensitive they are to living in the presence of a soul like Sri Ramakrishna. So M, smiling, on the surface you are very simple, but inwardly very deep. It is extremely difficult to understand you. Yeah, this is also a beautiful statement, that we get fooled sometimes because Sri Ramakrishna's examples are so simple. We get fooled at how brilliant and deep his understanding and his mind, such a logical mind that he had, in addition to everything else, that there was no inner contradiction with anything that he said. It was impossible for him. There can be contradictions in our understanding because it's only understanding. If someone has been to a country and they're explaining where they went this day and that day and what it's like and everything. There won't be any contradiction if their memory is good. If we're imagining that it's like this, and we say, "Oh, but you said it was like that yesterday," it's just our imagination. But Sri Ramakrishna, everything was out of his realization, and of course he would explain it as Divine Mother, also inspiring him to say all of these things. But yes, the depth of not just of his realization, but the depth of his understanding of these beautiful different Vedantic concepts and all the analogies and parables and everything is really something special and deceptively simple. Deceptively simple. We really have to think very deeply about some of these different illustrations that he gives. Master smiling. True, it is like the cement floor of a house. People see only the outer surface and do not know how many materials there are under it. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Balaram and several other devotees got into a country boat to return to Calcutta. It was ebb tide in the Ganges. A gentle breeze was blowing from the south, covering the bosom of the sacred river with ripples. M looked at the scene a long time. As the boat disappeared in the direction of Calcutta, he came back to the master. Yeah, M used to say about himself that he had a poetic nature. Yeah, he loved to look at all these beautiful natural flowing of the Ganges and the breeze and everything, and really could describe these things beautifully. Sri Ramakrishna was going to the pine grove. A beautiful dark rain cloud was to be seen in the northwest. The master asked M, "Do you think it will rain? Please bring my umbrella." M brought the umbrella. Reaching the Panchavati, the master said to Latu, who also accompanied him, "Why do you look so sickly?" Latu, of course, was staying with Sri Ramakrishna. Uh, we know about him. He was a orphan boy who came to Calcutta with his uncle, and they served in the house of Ram Babu, and it was through him that he came to meet Sri Ramakrishna and eventually lived with him, became Swami Atmajnanananda. Latu, I can hardly eat anything. Master, is that the only reason? It is also a bad time of the year. Are you meditating too much? This was probably the real thing. Plus, we know, I don't know if this is before or after, but at some point, he stopped sleeping at night and meditated throughout the night. I don't remember exactly when that incident took place. That Sri Ramakrishna scolded him because he was sleeping at a very odd hour. It was probably evening or something. He should have been meditating. Thakur asked where he was, and they said he was sleeping. So he scolded him. If you sleep now, when will you meditate? And night is the auspicious time for meditation. It was probably just after sundown. So then he resolved that he would not sleep at night, and he did it for the rest of his life, except maybe the very end when he was so ill before he passed away. But the rest of his life, he would just take a little nap sometime during the day and stay up at night doing a japa and meditation. So are you meditating too much? To M, I have a request to make of you. Please tell Babu Ram to stay with me a day or two during Rakal's absence. Otherwise, I shall feel very unhappy. You know, we've met our Babu Ram before, Swami Premananda, and Sri Ramakrishna was very anxious that he would stay with him because he used to say, when I enter into that state of samadhi, I can't bear the touch of anyone who is not perfectly pure. And as Babu Ram, he was pure to the very marrow. So he wanted him to stay there. Rakal couldn't stay there all of the time. He had a long trip to Vrindavan where Sri Ramakrishna was very nervous. And from time to time, he had a wife and then a child that he had to go back. He had to stay at his father's home. Sometimes he would go to the village, so he couldn't always be there. And Sri Ramakrishna needed somebody. So there's Baburam, the Swami Premananda was the one that he really wanted to stay. And then, of course, after some time, he did. Yes, sir, I shall tell him. Okay, then it continues a little bit. So this will go on for some time, this long section with these devotees from Shibpur. So we're stopping on page 504, Festival at Adhar's house. Om Niranjanam Nityamanandarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatudha Vikramai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tamarama Shirasa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto